Hi, everyone, and welcome to this live product demo. I'm your host. I'm the Chief Product Officer at WatchDox, Brian Callenber, and I'd be glad to, of course, field questions at any point during this demonstration. We're going to keep it within the half hour here, and I'll save a little bit of time at the end for questions. But if you do want to ask a question at any point in the demo, please do so through the little chat window in the lower right of your WebEx console. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give you an introduction to what WatchDox is all about. And we'll start with one of the classic ways that people use a file sync and share product, which of course WatchDox is, which is the Dropbox-style magic folder. So you see here I've got a couple of folders synced, and one of which is a little bit special. That's why it's got this little SharePoint icon here. But it all basically just shows up in the Favorites menu here on my Windows desktop. Now, one of the things that makes WatchDox a little bit different than most products in the space is that when you share things, you have an unprecedented level of control. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'll go into one of these workspaces here and click on Send a File. So now I can send it to anyone I like. I'll send it to Tim on my team for the purposes of this demo. And now I have this button here, Manage Recipient Permissions. Now this allows me to have complete control over what happens to this file past the point of handoff, past the point of download. And I can pick from any number of different templates to do this. Right, I've got basically green light, yellow light, red light, which is presented a little more graphically on the web interface that I'll show shortly. But it allows me to basically control what access rights that Tim will have to this file when I send it to him. So I can say maybe he should be able to view and print this file, and maybe even get a watermark on it. And it should expire for him in, say, 2 weeks, and he can share it with other people at WatchDox, but he can't share it beyond the borders of our company. Now that I've selected that, which of course I didn't actually have to do, if I didn't do that, the background admin permissions would apply, admin set permissions rather, which I'll show you shortly. All I have to do is click Send, and the file goes. It's as simple as that. Now, if I go to the web side of things, you'll see that I actually have a very good view into basically everything that constitutes my world from a file perspective. I have my own workspace where I've synced things. I've got all of the different workspaces that I have access to. And then I also have access to workspaces that might live in a slightly different place and actually, under the covers, be a little bit distinct from the standard file sync and share, drag and drop a folder into the magic folder style workspace. So these actually, under the covers, are in fact SharePoint libraries. That means they're document libraries where WatchDox knows what files and folders are in the library, knows who has permission to access things in those libraries, but we haven't actually copied all of the files here. You see that as an admin of this folder, I can actually see who else has access to it with one click, who's basically a member of this group. And I'll show you that here. So all my colleagues here have access to this group. And these files in here also show up in our web viewer if you so choose. So even if I have really restricted access rights, I can always get to my files through any interface, including the web and the mobile interfaces, which I'll show next. But here you've got a basic Word document, not doing anything complicated, but it's being rendered correctly because we're doing that on the server side and enforcing the same set of permissions that you saw in the template I showed earlier. So were I restricted from printing or editing or copying and pasting this file, all of that would be enforced here in the browser. Now, of course, with the browser, you can always go here and try and print. Here, if I actually print this file, it'll print nothing but blank pages if I don't actually have the permission to print the file. I'll show you actually then what it would look like if I opened a Word document that's been protected by WatchDox, that's been shared with me in Microsoft Word itself. So here you have just a standard Word file. It's got some text of an email that we sent to some oil and gas customers. And you have this little yellow bar here at the top. It's not actually any different than the standard Windows file menu. You still have the ribbon. You've got pretty much everything else. But if you go to the file itself, I'll expand the ribbon so it looks a little more normal, and you click View Permission, I see that Jennifer, who's on my team here, has shared this file with me, and she allows me to view it. She does not allow me to print it, forward it, copy and paste out of it, or edit it, and it doesn't ever expire. So noting that if I try and click on something and copy paste, I simply see that grayed out. If I go to the File menu and look to print, the print option is grayed out. That's because a file protected using WatchDox is behind the scenes, basically presenting itself to Microsoft Word as if it were protected with Microsoft's own document-centric security technology, which is known as Microsoft RMS, or Microsoft Rights Management. And because we're mapping those APIs, it's all native functionality within Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and we did the same thing with Adobe and image files and everything else that we can persistently protect according to those templates you saw earlier. Now, if I were simply sending something from the web with those templates, just have to pick a file here, and those same permission templates that you saw on the desktop sync client are available here through the web, and because we have a little bit more control over the interface, given that we're not bound by the aesthetic limits of Windows Explorer, we can make it a little more obvious who has access to what and give you essentially the same level of control. Now, you can send extremely large files using this functionality. We QA up to 10 gigabytes, but there's no architectural limit to the size of the file you can send. You can even send a terabyte file if you happen to have one lying around. Now, I'm not actually going to send this as part of the demo, but I will move on into actually showing you what sort of activity tracking that WatchDox enables you to do once you've protected a file persistently. So I'll go to a relatively non-sensitive file here, and a word about the little file folder icons here. You see when I tooltip or mouse over basically this folder here, I get a tooltip saying I'm an administrator. It's also visually indicated by the little gear icon. For some other workspaces, I have an up arrow, which means I can contribute. That basically is the role I have within that workspace. An admin obviously has full control. A contributor has the ability, in most cases, to add and edit content. And these other plain-looking folders here, I'm just a visitor. So I can probably consume that content, but I can't really do much with it if, in fact, that content is sensitive and has been locked down by the admins of the folder. Now, those permissions can apply at any level. And I'll go in here and actually show you something relatively non-sensitive so I can show you the kind of tracking data. So here you have a PowerPoint with a bunch of data from an analyst firm. You actually see here that this file has been annotated. I'll get to the mobile annotation feature in a moment. But I can see, because I'm the admin, certain things about the file itself. I can actually access previous versions of it that might have been updated by other people. And I can also see everybody who has access to it and what level of access they have. And again, we're organizing that with that green, yellow, red methodology. And I can see using this template here, basically who has access and what level of access that happens to constitute. Now, if I actually go into the File Tracking tab, I can even see another level of detail beyond that. I can see what has actually happened with this file. So here are a bunch of activities on a map. Some in the UK, some look to be Israel, some on the East Coast, some on the West Coast of the US. And if I want to, I can even really get a deep view into everything that's happening with a file that's shared or synced using WatchDox. Here I see activity from my colleagues Kevin and Ken and what I did just about 2 days ago when I cached it on a Mac. I annotated this file on an iOS device. Lots of other people have edited the permissions and added recipients, all kinds of different document actions, including if the file were secured to that level, even things that were done on a desktop post-download. Say somebody downloads the file and edits it offline. We would track that as well. So basically, it's a file-centric view of everything that happens to that file after the point at which it's sent or synced or shared using WatchDox. Now, there's actually about 118 actions on this file. You can slice the reporting by anything, right? File, folder, even what users do within the system. Now, this is probably a good time to move over to the mobile interface, which is one of the ones that is perhaps the most intriguing because it is a newer interface, and it's also one that a lot of people derive benefit from because we've architected our mobile solution a little differently than perhaps the average mobile solution. So I'm going to AirPlay to my laptop here, and this will show up shortly. This is the WatchDox mobile app. I've just gone in here. This is in fact rebrandable for those who are interested enough to do that. It actually helps create quite a great deal with user adoption. In fact, if you put your own logo in place of the WatchDox one on the app icon, but the ancillary point here. So you see the same thing you saw on the web interface. I basically have access to all of my files here. I'm going to go to view full screen so it's a little clearer. Here's my inbox, things that I've received, things I've sent to people, my own workspace, which are things I've basically right-clicked and synced. We try and make sure that it's very, very easy to just put something on WatchDox that happens to be on your hard drive. Also, if you're uploading from another place on a mobile device, you might choose to put it there. But again, these are the same folders, and you see the SharePoint ones as well. Now, I'm going to go to, say, my own sent items. Maybe this is some file I sent to somebody. This is the one I just sent to my colleague a minute ago. That's a PDF, so that's not the most interesting type of file. But let's try maybe going to this one, which is a PowerPoint. So the first thing you're probably going to notice is that this is a file that is a fairly complicated PowerPoint in terms of the template, but it looks exactly right. And that's because we're optimizing this file on the server side to be consumed on whatever interface that the end user happens to be using at the time. In this case, it's an iOS device, so we're converting it for iOS. You see you've got charts here, but everything's displaying properly, which does not happen, of course, in the native viewer. If I want to, I can actually take this to the next level by starting to collaborate with this file. And the thing that actually turns out to be really interesting is that one of the best applications of a mobile device when it comes to file-based collaboration is annotations. You're basically recreating what you did in the physical world when you printed out a large document, grabbed a red pen, and started marking it up. So I'll grab my virtual red pen here, show you how it works when you circle things. You can underline things. You can do whatever essentially you want. There's a highlighter as well with different colors. And then there's, of course, the standard kind of sticky note where you can type whatever feedback you want. And that feedback is tagged with metadata, basically who made the annotation and when. And you can I think, move all of these things around once you've already created them. There's even an eraser tool if you make a mistake. So all of that is there, and it's basically accessible at the touch of a button. The Annotate button doesn't require you to open an annotation app. It doesn't require you to do anything that involves app switching or insecurity in that respect. What app switching does, and it's called a share sheet in iOS, is make an unencrypted, unprotected copy of the file into the other app sandbox. Now, we're not relying on that here. If my administrator so chose, I could actually open and in this file. This file particularly, I could open and in another app if I had full access to it. But if the rights to this file were managed, the access rights, the usage rights, any of the information rights, I would not be able to open it in another app. But of course, I don't need to because I have all these tools here locally. So I can even share these annotations with any of my colleagues. And if I want to keep them private, I can just share the file without those annotations. If I do this iOS 7 style button here, then it includes my annotations when I share the file. And that was what you saw on the web interface where there's a little annotation yellow sticky note showing up alongside the file name. You can even consume those file annotations on other platforms like the desktop, the Mac, wherever else you might need them. Now, maybe I want to work with this file as well. And this is a PowerPoint, so maybe I want to make some minor changes to some of the text. We give you two options to do that. This first one is called WatchDox Editor. WatchDox Editor is included with all WatchDox accounts, and it is a client-side local mobile optimized editor. So it'll do a good job if you want to do some basic changes. Say if you want to change text, if you want to move small things around. And it actually does a reasonably good job rendering things like PowerPoint, although it's not as good as completely native PowerPoint. We have a slightly different option for that. But if I want to change text, if I want to do anything basic with the file, if I want to even add a photo or an image or a shape, I can do that directly within the app itself without, again, doing an open-in action and working with an external editing tool. Now, I might even need to do more than that. Say I have a complex animation in my PowerPoint, Or maybe I have, say, a pivot table on an Excel spreadsheet. Now, a mobile editor will not work for that. Even Microsoft's own mobile editor, which is at present linked to OneDrive and Office 365 subscriptions, won't actually suffice. So at WatchDox, we wanted to give the user a comprehensive, seamless, secure experience to work with their files. So here we actually are instantiating what's called a WatchDox app. This is PowerPoint, full-blown desktop PowerPoint that is running on a virtual host and is basically being streamed to whatever device I have. Now, this is real PowerPoint. The fidelity is perfect. It's exactly the same as if it were on my desktop. And I can also make any changes I want using lots of things that we've optimized for a mobile device. So if I tap with 3 fingers, that brings up the virtual keyboard. I can go here and see a virtual trackpad if I want to get fancy with the mouse. But again, basically this is everything that is in PowerPoint running here on my iOS device. And this can be streamed to any device because actually the endpoint of it, the way the device is consuming it, is pure HTML5. So I can even go here to this broadcast feature, and the broadcast feature will allow me to collaborate in real time with whomever else I want, and even enable them to take control of the editing session with this PowerPoint file, using real PowerPoint. That's the Google Docs kind of style, real-time collaboration with proper Microsoft Office applications. And again, the data-centric security is still applying. We're still enforcing all the same permissions across all these interfaces, and we're even tracking actions like the audit log here with from a file-centric perspective. So every time I open an app, every time I open an editor, every time I collaborate with the file, all of that is being tracked for compliance and intelligence purposes. So if I made any changes, they would basically be syncing back to the server or wherever they had originally come from. So with that, I'm going to hop back over to Windows Explorer and show everybody a couple of things around administration. All right, so administration is one of the important elements to keep in mind for any solution at scale. All right, you can edit user roles here and see basically anything a user has access to, or go from the perspective of a folder or a workspace or a file and see who has access to it. But more crucially than that, we have a rich set of admin roles that really draw a distinction between people who are designed to interface with things and people who are going to actually consume content. All right, so these admin roles here, with the exception of the super admin role, which is very unlikely to be used for more than one person, and in most customer deployments doesn't get used at all, these admin roles here do not actually have access to content. So very much unlike other solutions in the space like a Box or an Ignite or Simplicity or Citrix ShareFile, the admin roles here don't actually have the ability to access content. And they're not going to be able to view everybody's files. You're not essentially creating a Snowden every time you give somebody an admin account. Now, there's lots of other things you can do here that all derive from the power of WatchDox to control files at the file level. One of these things is to be able to wipe absolutely any device. So you see here, I've been working with a Windows device and an iOS device in my demos here today. I can actually go to that iOS device and wipe it if I happen to lose it. And it won't touch anything else on the device. It'll only touch the WatchDox container on the device, which will be wiped. I can do the same thing with the Windows Sync client. I can do all of that essentially from the perspective of the admin without ever needing to manage any of these devices, no matter what they are, whether they're desktop devices, whether they are mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, doesn't matter. Logging and reporting, we showed some of the tracking there, so I won't dwell on that point. Now, there's some other things in here that are worth noting. So when I shared a file using quick sending earlier, I showed you how you can go in and if you so choose, you can manage the permissions, turn watermarks on, expiration, etc. Now, if I hadn't done anything, I just sent the file, these defaults that are set by the admin here would have applied. From the perspective of sharing, a slightly different set of defaults apply. So I'll show you something about what that looks like. And actually, for the moment, I'll also show you the fact that I don't have to sync all of my workspaces to my desktop. I have about 100 workspaces or so. I don't choose to sync them all. The ones I put a little checkbox next to will sync persistently to the desktop. Now, if I want to share one of those workspaces, all I do is go to WatchDox in the context menu here, and I can share with anybody. It even auto-completes. And all I have to choose are whether they're going to be visitors or contributors. And I can do some advanced things if I choose to, which I almost never do. Now, when I actually do that sharing action, these permissions that are set here on the server actually will apply. So the contributors will be able to print and edit, and they'll download an original version of the file. They can copy paste. They get a watermark. They don't get Spotlight, which I'll show in a moment. And programmatic access, which is the ability of that file to run macros and other code, is also checked. Visitors, on the other hand, cannot print, cannot edit, get a controlled version if they wish to download the file. They are not able to copy and paste. They do get a watermark. They don't get Spotlight, do get programmatic access, and their access expires in 1 month. On the mobile side, you can do similar sort of things, right? All of this is basically controllable because WatchDox never forces you to leave control of a file that you've shared, even if it goes to an unmanaged device, even if it is downloaded. Now, protection policies are also worth bearing in mind. So for some customers, the security risks associated with not being able to detect that an Android device is jailbroken or rooted are not acceptable. So WatchDox actually allows you to control which different mobile operating systems are able to authenticate to the WatchDox server. Now you can also do things like white and blacklist different file types in the sync policies. The WatchDox server and sync client are smart enough to not sync things like PST and OST files by default because they're not supposed to be synced. But you can even whitelist or blacklist if you so choose. Then there's also an offline period configuration, which is going to be essentially the length of time that the decryption key is cached for those who have offline access to a file. So after that 72 hours in this case expires, the key expires, and they have to come back online just in case you've chosen to revoke the file from them or change their access rights in some way. I'll also show real quickly the watermarks here. The watermarks here are dynamic, and they're usually derived from the recipient's information. So if I share a file with you and I don't want you to send it to, say, the Wall Street Journal, I might splash your email address across it in black and make the font size large, the opacity 30%, and maybe even add something like a timestamp if I want to. I usually keep it to large, black, diagonal, and viewer's email, but that's just my preference. Now, all of this is, of course, customizable, and it's customizable for different groups within an organization if you so choose. Now, the question that almost always comes up when demoing WatchDox is, but what about taking a picture of the screen? Everybody's carrying around multiple cameras now. If you have front-facing and back-facing cameras and a smartphone and a tablet, you have 4 in your possession alone. But there is, of course, always a way to compensate for people who might be choosing to try and take a picture of a given file. And that's what we call Spotlight. So this is a mode that you can use to share files, and it will actually disguise the bulk of the file. All right, it'll allow you to view a piece of the file around the cursor so you can read the file, but if you were to try and take a picture of the screen, you'd only get a little bit of it, and you'd be spending half your day in Photoshop attempting to reconstruct it. And you can even include a watermark, like I have here at the top of the document, that makes it even more secure. This is really not a commonly used feature of WatchDox. It is used on about 0.05% of total files in our system. But when you have something that is incredibly important, and many things on WatchDox are incredibly important, we deal with some of the most sensitive customers in the world, this might be warranted for sharing something that really, really cannot leave your control. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the demo for now. We're now able to take a couple of questions, so I'm going to go back into the WebEx console, check on the questions themselves, and get to a few of them. Here's one about deployment. Can this be deployed on premise? The answer is absolutely yes. So WatchDox can be deployed as a virtual appliance. It can be deployed in a hybrid configuration where the WatchDox server is essentially in the cloud and you're connecting to on-premise repositories like SharePoint or FileShares or some other type of repository. Or you can consume it fully as a cloud service. I'd actually say that about 80% of our customers are fully on-prem. If you care about controlling your encryption keys, if you care about the FISA and Snowden things, if you also are a very large-scale organization with north of 1,000 users or so, it actually might be more efficient if you really run the numbers to deploy on-premise. There's quite a bit of bandwidth cost involved in syncing an organization's file out to the internet, as well as, of course, storage costs. It's very difficult to work in the petabyte scale storage world in the cloud, because we as a vendor would have to essentially, even if we pass through that cost, charge you quite a bit of money for that, and you can get a better deal from whoever sells you storage right now, because the cost of that is coming down precipitously. Okay, so that is the only question we had for the demonstration today. I really appreciate everybody joining today. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm just Ryan at WatchDox.com, and have a great day, everybody.